everyone, Blue here at Practical Measuring Systems. Today I'm conducting a brief interview on our advisory services. And to discuss this topic, I have Frank Panofen. Frank Panofen is a global marketing manager at PMS, and he's an excellent person to speak with since the advisory service team is part of his overall global responsibility. Frank, how are you today?
Thank you, Blue. I'm doing well. I'm very pleased to have this interview. Let's look into the details.
Awesome. I only have 5 brief questions. And my first one is, what kind of challenges has the travel restrictions from COVID-19 caused our advisory group?
Well, the reality is typically our advisory services, they are consultants and they are solving problems and they're filling some gaps. And so from a historical perspective, it was typically interaction between humans, visits, a lot of face-to-face discussions, and you need to visit cleaning, disinfections and filling lines, review a lot of documentation, and that was done all in face-to-face interviews and visits. Of course, that was not always very easy to conduct, because at the time when you are at the customer side, everyone needs to be available, everyone needs to be have the documents ready, and so on and so forth. So nowadays we are not able to visit due to COVID, but the problems remain, and still we need to exchange this personal interaction and these personal customer visits and direct interaction with the people by other means, by electronic media and so on.
So how have we been able to get around these challenges then?
Well, in reality, the first step is flexibility is the key. There is a complete change in mindset of all the parties. It means the advisors and the customers, of course. It's very important to communicate with customers and pharma companies that have really motivated people and they are open to change and see opportunities for growing on these different scales. Of course, we're using all channels of electronic communications in this case. So suddenly, organizations are deeper and directly involved when using communication tools like video chats and so on. And interestingly, I believe it is not the transfer of know-how that is missing now. It is much more intense. So we are going much deeper into the interaction with electronic tools. It is as well very essential then that the people associated to these projects are available and are much more interested into electronic tools that are much more open and ready to learn. They must be motivated and extremely well educated on these things, and then it is a really absolute nice experience for all the people.
Absolutely. So what kind of advisory services have we been able to complete remotely? Can you give us examples?
Well, the reality is we have multiple activities that we experience right now. There are examples, for example, risk assessments for defining points, cleaning and sanitization strategies. In all these cases, photographic or video material was really collected. In essence, we have been using 5 steps to do that. First of all, you send the documentation that is required before the start of the interactions. There is a pre-read material, more or less. Secondly, these video and photo material are shared on a virtual platform, on a safe and secure virtual platform. And then there are some meetings coming up. First in a bigger group with quality assurance and manufacturing professional, and then you do one-on-one meetings in the 4th step with the different subject matter experts. Those people are then really discussing directly about certain problems, about certain process steps and certain aspects of the problems that we are looking in. So it becomes a puzzle, and there is an iteration process around it. The iteration brings us to the situation that by step, by each piece of the puzzle, by each photograph, by each discussion point, by each discussion over the phone, you are getting closer to the problem and understanding what are the difficulties. And then in the last step, a documentation is issued from our advisors. It is collected and brought into a final report. And in the end, during the final report presentation, The kappa, that means the advice on how to change the process or how to improve the process are being given.
Fantastic. So what has been the customer feedback about all these remote advisory?
Well, we had excellent feedback. The enthusiasm, it was really great. The results were perfect. All requirements of the customers were really met. So they said, well, this was met like we would be doing a normal advisory or consultancy project, but even more, it increased the know-how of the people that were integrated into this challenge. So remember, there were these young professionals that were integrated as the interface. This learning and coaching experience from the advisor towards these young professionals was extremely high, and there was a super knowledge transfer. They get really a good teaching and understanding, and the scientific value was not cut down, but even increased during the interactions, because all the documentation you had were on hard drives, on virtual platforms, and you could really review all these documents once again under different aspects. That means in the end, customers were happy with this, and the best is they return to us for similar exercises, and that's the best sign for it.
That is an excellent sign. And so my last question is, compared to the traditional advisory services, what are the advantages for the customer, and what does it represent for particle measuring systems?
Well, first let me talk about the perspective of particle measuring systems. It is a big advantage and a big change that we have a very strong involvement of the customer on these virtual interactions. We have a better guiding through the whole processes of understanding. That means you start from A, you end to Z, but the customer is with you all the time, and you guide this customer through the whole process. And the final result is not a surprise, but it is finally a result of discussions and details and facts that have been gathered throughout the process. From another aspect, time management is much more important, and it's better because you can do the meetings when the people are available for only 1 hour, for the time where you have just the one-on-ones. In ancient times, let's say in pre-COVID times, we had always the difficulty that we needed to coordinate all the activities on site in the pharma company, and the people were not always available in these, let's say, 2 days of customer. And from a customer perspective, finally, the acquisition of knowledge was greatly improved. These strong learning effects for this junior professional was very much appreciated. It's a perfect coaching example and exercise. This logic step-by-step approach, the iteration, brings them to a greater understanding and scientific value of these interactions. So I must say, from a perspective of PMS and from a perspective of the customer, I think we've done a great step in improving even our consultancy and advisory support.
Fantastic, Frank. Thank you so much for your time today.
Thank you, Blue, for asking the questions, and see you next time on this channel.
Absolutely. See you next time.
Bye.